All right, hello guys. So I want to look live a little earlier than I usually do, and I also don't go live on Tuesdays either. But I'm on spring break, so I got some free time, and I didn't stream yesterday because I was getting out the video for today. Because we're also gonna have a reread on the second channel. So yeah. Hi Crab, hi Mar, hi Jacob. Welcome to your first stream. And I'm doing all right. It's a nice day where I live. So that's nice. But yeah, how's everybody else doing in the chat? We're gonna be talking about, I guess first I'll kind of talk about what people want to hear first, which is the George R. R. Martin. He gave like a very minor update, but I figured I would talk about it because I haven't really put anything out on any of my social media about it, just to give my little thoughts on it. I don't think there's too much to talk about that hasn't already been said, but we'll talk about that. And then I do want to focus some of this on Jon Snow and the Wall and talking about a little bit of the stuff in the North. I don't think I've talked a lot about the Wall and Jon specifically with the Winds of Winter. I've talked a lot about Winterfell, Stannis's plot, sometimes Bran, and all that. Uh, legit got me into the books, and I'm almost done with Dance. Well, I'm glad, Jacob. You'll have to join the long wait for Winds of Winter. You're on spring break. It's not even spring yet. Lucky dog. Yeah, I needed it though. Midterms last week yeah, I was just overwhelmed with trying to get a video up for that week. That was the longest. Well, it wasn't the longest. I think it was the second longest behind the prologue. And yeah, just a lot of stuff. And you guys, I feel like you guys can tell because I did a live stream Saturday on Reina or Sunday on Reina, which I normally don't do. Yeah. Mar, you just got to live with it, I guess. But yeah, let's talk on the updates. So I'll briefly talk about what it is. This was done, I believe, in like an interview or a report. And George R. R. Martin just gives a very brief statement on it. And this really comes off, in my opinion, as George R. R. Martin being frustrated with probably House of the Dragon, given his comments that he made earlier on last year. And I think that kind of reads here, but this is what he says, and then we'll talk about it. I have to finish the books. That's the one thing I'm completely in control of, Martin told Collider, I'm assuming. There's no budget limitations, there's no executives on the studio side that I have to please, or other writers with different views. The books are what I'm going to make them. And I think the one I'm writing is coming pretty well, but I wish it would come faster. Again, it just feels like more of the same in terms of George R. R. Martin saying, "Oh, Winds of Winter is coming. I'm working on it," type stuff. He's positive about it, which is nice, but this doesn't imply to me that like Winds of Winter is like, close to being finished or anything like that. Maybe he's gotten some more done on it based on what he's talking about here, but in terms of Winds of Winter's actual progress, not much. I think the more interesting part of this is, George R. R. Martin kind of went radio silent after kind of had a bit of a, I would say, just acting out against House of the Dragon. He kind of went silent for a while. Then some things kind of popped up once again. House of the Dragon season 3, some of the news is starting to pick up. The first script, some of the filming's about to start. There was also a panel for House of the Dragon season 3. George R. R. Martin did not attend, I believe. Haven't looked into too much of that. Just haven't been as involved with House of the Dragon news, things like that. But even I've seen it through a Red Team Reviews latest video. I saw the thumbnail, so I don't know a lot of the context on it, but him not being there is quite interesting. I believe he was at the last two for season 2 and then season 1. So, I think this comes more from George R. R. Martin being extremely frustrated at working with television shows, right? He's now worked on 2 different projects for his world in A Song of Ice and Fire. Game of Thrones, we know how that went, and then House of the Dragon, and we've already seen his thoughts. And again, it doesn't even feel like we got all of his thoughts. It feels like we got a little tiny window into what George was really feeling towards the show. And so I think that this kind of, or of the takeaway here is that George R. R. Martin still is not pleased with what House of the Dragon, Ryan Condal, and team are doing and going forward. And maybe that's pushing him to write the Winds of Winter more because he is not constrained by anything but himself in Winds of Winter and him writing it. So maybe that's going to help him. I know that we've talked about that in the past, House of the Dragon, especially I would say right after season ended. I know JC, you're in the chat. I think we talked about this on stream or at least in videos a little bit. So again, that's all that comes. That's all that comes here. So I didn't feel like this needed to be a video. Didn't think I needed to make a big deal out of it. But I know people want me to talk about stuff like that. So I figured beginning of the stream, I'd talk about it. We can kind of get it out of the way. Maybe if you guys want to ask me questions on it, we'll talk. But I do want to kind of then shift the stream over to actually talking about some of the stuff in Winds of Winter, Jon Snow, and kind of the Wall, and how we maybe see that plot going down. Let me get back to chat if anybody is has any questions or anything. Um, George R. R. Martin is slightly positive on Wynn's progress. It's not like we've heard that a million times before. Yes, it's more of the same with an undertone of him having some resentment, it seems, towards television shows and things like that. What is under the books on the left and right? So if you're talking on over here, I just have some miniatures. You can't see them all that great because I'm not zoomed in, but I have a Darth Maul. These used to be all the rage when I was a kid. Star Wars little mini guys. So I've got a Darth Maul one here. Some Lord of the Rings miniatures from a game that my friend was giving away, and I was like, I'll just take the miniatures. I have my Robb Stark crown from Halloween. And this stuff I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. This is a dragon egg my friend got me that's supposed to be one of Daenerys' eggs. And then I just have some shot glasses that have the Baratheon sigil, the Lannister sigil, the Targaryen sigil, and the Stark sigil. Yeah. George is writing when he feels like it, basically. Yes. Until there is a release date for Wins, Words Are Wind, I agree. Until I see a page count update, I sleep. I will say, though, the anger he feels towards Ryan Connell might hopefully be positive for his writing. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well. I bet he keeps going back and changing what he already has. I agree, Jacob. I think that's what's one thing that when we look at the Winds of Winter sample chapters, it's hard to evaluate things based off of them because I think a lot of them will change. Like, even if you think about a lot of these Winds of Winter sample chapters, it's been a long time since he's even released those. So he could have gone back and changed them. Again, me and JC talked about Arya a little bit and about her sample chapter and how it probably is going to get changed majorly. But we'll see. I'm sure George is facing a lot of writing problems because the story has many branches, more than one ending, and he's confused about the branching he wants. I think that's a big part of it, Mar. I agree. Ryan Connell should have left the studio via the moon door a while ago. I agree. My favorite theories for wins come from the North and Jon Snow, so I'm ready. Yes, Violet. We are going to be talking about that, so hit me with all of your ideas, stuff like that. Hi, Gerg. How are you? So yeah, let's kind of shift to the stuff that I really wanted to talk about. This was kind of more just like I felt obliged to mention it because it was relevant in the community, but it wasn't something I really wanted to focus this stream on at all, really. But let's kind of shift over. So then, in Winds of Winter, I think the plot line that I think most people are, I would say, more interested in the actual northern politics and the actual Stannis plot line, the Bolton plot line. So where does the Jon Snow plotline fit into that? Because it feels like we have a lot of stuff going on in the north. We have Bran's plotline. How is that going to conclude itself, wrap itself up? Something that I think George is probably struggling with. Then have, okay, so Jon Snow himself and his plotline. Will we even see Jon Snow as a POV? This is something me and Ricky kind of hinted at on our stream on Monday or yesterday. And I think that I think that Jon Snow will probably continue being a POV, but I could see a world where he's not, given the fact that Melisandre seems to be set up to take over that plot line, at least in the very early stages of Winds of Winter until Jon's back. Real question will be, okay, will we see a POV where Jon is actually side of Ghost, and when Jon comes back, which I think he more than likely will, it's just how we get there is that I think a lot of people will struggle on, even myself as well, is will we see him come back? Catelyn dies, comes back as Lady Stoneheart. We don't actually see her as a plot or a POV. We don't see her really. We see her through other eyes. Could George do something else with Jon like that? I think a lot of that will probably predicated on the idea of will Jon be vastly different, from dance to wins? Like, is he going to be a very changed person? Because if he is, I think it would be interesting to look at the character from another point of view's like eyes. And the one thing I do question is because I brought up Bran in here because I think Bran also will stop being. Will George kind of convert to where we start not seeing of our main POV from book one, start kind of integrating into the newer POVs and letting those characters take over? You think about Daenerys, right? I think she's going to have a lot of POV winner, but as we then start to transition to where she has a lot of POV around her, if Barristan survives, Tyrion, however long with Tyrion's in the story, as she gets to or not Winterfell, as she gets over to Westeros, there'll be more and more POVs around her. It'll be interesting to see what George does with that. Like, does George kind of condense our older POV transition to new because we've been with the old POVs for so long? So I'm kind of on the fence. A part of me thinks that based on what we've seen so far in the series, that George will go away from the POV of Jon Snow, especially at least in the first half of the book anyway. But then another half of me goes, okay, do we see him, maybe later on, right? I don't know. It's tough because you think of John as being one of the major three. He's one of the main three characters right now of the story. It feels like anyway, just given on, A Dance with Dragons, how much time he had in that. There's definitely other characters that sneak into there, but obviously the top three characters are Tyrion, Daenerys, and Jon. And so would George be willing to take one of those away as a POV? I think it's definitely plausible that he does so. If you think about the first three books, Catelyn is one of those, and she disappears as being one of the top three POVs, at least in terms of chapter counts and pages and all that stuff. He definitely could. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think we'll see more Jon Snow POVs in the Winds of Winter? On a reread, the Jon Snow dance chapters are really bloated. So much could have been cut out. TJC, I don't think I'm in that camp. I like a lot of Jon Snow's chapters in dance. I think that yes, some stuff could have been cut here and there, but I think almost all of his chapters have a reason they're there. And some certain meaning. I think others mean more than other ones, of course, but I'm kind of on the other side of that. I feel that John and Dance is probably one of the stronger POVs. Like, I'd probably put him in like A plus tier for me, but I don't know. Again, hard for me because Dance is my least favorite book. So, you know, I much prefer the idea of John not being a POV anymore. I do love the ghost POV idea. Yeah, George, this might be George R. R. Martin in chat, by the way. We don't know. But George, I do really like that idea that we don't see John anymore because I do really love the idea of other people now looking at John and how do they view him. He's a character that going to come back from the dead, very easily be very changed. We're not going to be in his head if we're seeing him through other POVs. We have to go through what is John's thought process. And George has already hinted at this idea already. Go back to a pros, we get to see the early stages of John's plotline in Sam's POV. And so we question why John is doing all the decisions he's doing, and we're not in John's head. We don't know exactly why he's doing things. Some of the things he's doing kind of seem very cruel, switching Gilly's child and things like that. So I actually think that there is a lot of precedence for George going away from John as a POV. I think that'd be really interesting. It'd be a really ballsy move, but George has never shied away from things like that. So I do really like that idea. Jon should be a villain or stay dead. So, Crab, my thoughts on Jon Snow coming back to life is there needs to be a reason. He needs to either be extremely changed, that he's a new character like Catelyn, or it's something where his death creates a very interesting idea for people around him. We explore what comes after death, or um, ethics of bringing someone back to life, or just things like that that add to the plot line. One thing that I kind of agree with George, and it's ironic that George criticizes Tolkien for bringing characters back, but he's actually done it a couple times now. Is the idea of like Gandalf coming back? Shout out to Lord of the Rings. One thing, and I love Gandalf's character, and I still think the story's great with Gandalf coming back to life. I think that Gandalf dying and coming back to life is so weird to me because I think what makes Fellowship of the Ring so great is Gandalf's death and the impact that it does have on the story. is it takes our characters who have been following Gandalf as being our lead character, one that has the plan, and makes our other characters act and have to make the plan and have to go out and do things for themselves. And it just hits so hard because Gandalf has been like our safety net the whole way through the book. When you take that out, it becomes a completely different story and it changes the entire like last third of the book. I do think like when he comes back, one of the things that's a bit disappointing is like Gandalf just feels like he's a bit stronger. Doesn't feel like all that change, right? He does change, but he doesn't feel like doesn't feel like to me that it's a completely like different character or it was this big overarching thing. And I don't know. That's my thing with people coming back to life is I feel like it needs to have a real big purpose and have a fundamental shift on that character that dies in the story. We never learn the truth of Ashara. Is Jojen and Mira's mother? I think that Ashara could very easily be kept up to mystery, but I also think that if we get Howland revealing Tower of Joy stuff, we'll learn more about Ashara. I think that it's very likely when we meet Howland, we'll start to unravel some of the mysteries of Robert's Rebellion. I agree. I really think it's up to how different Jon is when he comes back. Agreed. I think George is fed up of the original characters. He seems too much to prefer the new characters. I do too. I'm sure I heard him say somewhere that Ariane and Asha are his favorites to. I love both of those POVs. They're two of my most anticipated going into the next book. And, if that is the case, it makes sense given the fact that at one point, George wanted to do a time skip. And now he's not able to do that. And so he's forced to write these characters at a younger age than he probably wanted to. I think Arya is one of the bigger ones on that idea. So think about that idea. Feast for Crows is a book all about new POVs, all about new characters, plot lines. About Brienne, it's about introducing Cersei as a POV. About the Dornish POVs, about the Greyjoy stuff. It's an expansion of the world. And so even characters that are, present characters in the past books for POVs like Arya and Sansa are for the most part sidelined. Arya has 5 chapters. Sansa has 3 chapters in the last book. Sansa doesn't have a POV in the last book, but in terms of both of the last 2 books combined, I could see that argument. But the issue is then you go to Dance, which has the exact opposite philosophy. We get an overabundance of Daenerys, overabundance of Tyrion, overabundance of Jon. Those 3 POVs just completely dominate the book. So I don't know. It's yes and no. I think on that a little. Jon should be more cynical. I agree. I think Jon. I mean, put this perspective. Jon is going to die by the people that he maybe didn't necessarily trust, but the people that elected him as their Lord Commander. Tried everything he can to try and protect them from the others and doing all this stuff. He's betrayed by them. He's killed by them. That should change him quite a lot. It also should make him think about his mortality and maybe it changes how he acts. I think there's a lot there that really could go with an interesting character. Like something the show sets up and never does anything with is when Jon comes back in Game of Thrones season 6, there's this question of where did Jon go when he dies? Like, is there an afterlife? Is there anything else? And Jon just replies with nothing, darkness. That's something that you could easily expand upon because that's a shattering thing for Westeros. Faith, how they preach things, or how religion goes, and the idea of lore, all that could be shattered by the idea that just nothing. That's something that could just fundamentally change a person if you die and you come back and realize there's nothing after this life. It's just this. That could be something really interesting that you could very easily. Yeah, again, Jacob, you could go the other way of that as well, right? What if Jon comes back and he says there's an afterlife, there's this or that? Like, that's really interesting. I agree, though, Jacob. I think Jon should have stayed dead in the show. I know why he was brought back for a lot of reasons, marketing reasons, plot armor, face of the show outside of Daenerys and Tyrion, but he doesn't really serve all that much of a role in terms of being a character. He's just the same person from season 5, just brought back. But I agree, Joseph. Like that, I mean, again, that's the reason Jon is killed is because, for one, he doesn't communicate with people, doesn't take other people's arguments out and respond to them. He very okay, this is how it's gonna be done. Not really gonna We're not gonna communicate about it. We're not gonna talk about why I believe this, why you believe that. It's not like a reasonable argument or a respectful argument. It's I'm gonna get my way because I'm in charge. That's just how it is. And so that's a lot of the reason why he dies. And he does things that are contradictory to what the Night's Watch believe traditionally. Really hope there's no POV. It'd be like Varys and Littlefinger. The Reader's trying to figure out what he's planning and how his mind works. That is the exact reason why I don't believe Bran is going to be a POV, because Bran's going to know too much, like those characters, that he can only be used sparingly. And that's a really big issue, I think, if you're George, is how do you implement Bran, who's a character that's going to be like, yeah, Jon's parents are this and this, or this is how the others were formed, or this, like, he can just spew random knowledge that would be groundbreaking, even us as readers who've been speculating on things like Valyria. How did it exactly fall? And maybe he knows that information because go back in a Weirwood and somebody maybe has more information on that or something. Like there's limitless possibility character of Bran. Could Sam using the glass candle in Old Town have any effect on events at the wall? Maybe with the resurrection of Jon, perhaps he saw Jon's assassination. George, I'm not sure, right? Again, I think the glass candle ideas in Old Town are still yet to be really all that much. But I mean, I won't count it out. I won't count it out, but I think more of what we're going to see magic wise is going to be through more than it's going to be through outside force. Maybe Mel, maybe a combination of Mel and Bloodraven. We've seen that Bloodraven seems to have a lot of stock in Starks, Jon Snow specifically. I pointed out a number of examples, past chapters or past videos about how possibly Bloodraven, or whether this is the Three-Eyed Crow, is manipulating events to help Jon. Maybe that could be another chance for him. Hi, Vlad. How are you? Hi, Dakota. Sorry, I started a little early for you. I know. Ashley has yet to arrive. She has not arrived yet. Not arrived yet. But she put in a shift yesterday, and a lot of her favorite characters got slandered, so she needs a break. She needs a break. That's all I gotta say. But you think about it, so let's talk about the idea of Jon actually getting resurrected. It's really hard to pinpoint how that's going to go down, because I have thought that in the past it makes a lot of sense for it to be some sort of blood sacrifice, or Alessandra sacrificing someone else for Jon to come back. I don't think it's going to be as simple as it was in the show where Elle says some words over Jon's body and he just resurrects like that. I think it's going to be something a bit more intense than that. Even when we see, for instance, Lady Stoneheart come back or Catelyn come back, Eric has to give his life for that to happen. I think that for Jon to come back, going to probably involve some sort of sacrifice ritual that causes blood to be a major factor. It's just what it seems like. That's every time we've seen it. Now there is exceptions. Seen that with Beric with Thoros. People aren't exactly having to die for him to be brought back. He part of his soul and things like that. But you think about other times where we see like the birth of the dragons that involved blood magic or sacrifice as well, if you want to go that far. Um, I think that John's is going to be revolved around that idea. So the issue kind of comes up with, okay, well, who is going to be in that position, right? Am I quiet, guys? Let me know. If I'm quiet, let me know. I can turn up the audio a little. It's hard to like figure out exactly audio levels because I can kind of see them. They're just like over that way. They're just that way. But yeah. And also I'm using for the first time like a mic stand. But like a mic stand that sits on my desk. But yeah, let me know down in comments. Are we good on audio, sound? If not, I can up it for you guys. All of that. But the idea that I was kind of alluding to is I've kind of maybe thought about the idea or even theorized the idea that, what if Shireen is the person burned and killed that Jon can come back? So in that idea, the problem then becomes we have two issues. Well, I guess one issue, but there's two ways of going about it. If Shireen is going to be the person that's burned for Jon to come back, it is interesting that Stannis is supposed to be the person that kills her. So if that is the case, how is that going to happen? Stannis is at Winterfell, interlocked in the Battle of Ice. Tina's at the Wall. How's that going to go? Um, Dakota, you're whispering sweet nothings in my ear, but I have Crab also saying audio is fine. I'll maybe I'll raise the audio for you guys a little. I don't know. Do you guys want me to raise audio a little? I need like more confirmation from chat. Chat, if you have the ability, let me know. Um, I think Shireen will die for nothing because Jon is not dead. He is inside a ghost. That's another part of it. Yeah, I think that's an interesting part of it. Okay, so Jacob says raise it. All right, let me raise it a little bit, and then I'll let you guys see if it's better or not. All right, is that better? I raised it like a good amount, like not a good amount. I mean, it's not crazy, but I it made the gain go up by like 3. So, um, and maybe his hair turns white like Lady Stoneheart's because she's been dead for several days too. Yeah, definitely could be possible. I think it'd be great to change Jon's look to show that he's visibly changed. I also think it could be interesting given Targaryen heritage. That could be interesting if his hair turns white, just to symbolize maybe the Targaryen part of Jon not coming out. Maybe if he's more fiery like a Targaryen, or he's more vengeful or spiteful, things like that. Only death can pay for life. Totally agree. If Jon comes back, then someone else will have to go. I would say Shireen too, but logistics are funky. Plus, there has to be something to Shireen's grayscale. Yeah, I agree. I think that if we actually do see Shireen's death, it's just weird. How does the execution go? Like how do we get to a point where Stannis burns her? Or is George going to change that? He could always change that. I know he said that Stannis will, or at least confirmed that that plot point in season 5 is his. So how do we get to that point? Because Stannis is either going to have to lose the Battle of Ice, so he quickly retreats to the Wall, which doesn't seem all that likely. Then he's going to have to either win the Battle of Ice, either take Winterfell really quickly, or realize he can't take Winterfell, go back to the Wall. All of that's going to take a good amount of time. Like we're talking like those events would occur maybe halfway through the book. So if that is the expectation, we're in a really weird spot. You also have to remember, everybody at the Wall is going to think that Stannis is dead because of the letter. Or at least a lot of people will. Maybe some people might read through it or question it like us, the audience, are. For the most part, people are going to think that Stannis is. So that could also prompt, and this is why I think it makes a lot of sense, that Mel then would be prompted to burn Shireen because of desperation and things like that. Like, if that was to occur, Mel would think that Stannis and Jon are both dead, the people that she's most tied to. I think it's just weird that Stannis is going to burn Shireen, given the logistics of where everyone is. That's another part of it, right? Jon is a bit different of a case than someone like Catelyn, someone like Beric, because his essence is going to be in Ghost, right? The idea of the whole Robb died twice theory applies to Jon as well. Is that going to change how he is brought back? Will that have some sort of effect? Also, let me know, guys, if audio is better. It should be not significantly, but it should be decently louder. Uh, let me go up. I don't see it though. Oh, is it this? So Sansa marrying young Griff. Jon becomes king beyond the Wall with white hair and a red eye. Rickon / Robb's son becomes king in the north. Arya returning to White and Black House, and Nymeria and enters Nymeria until her consciousness fades and she dies. There's some interesting thoughts. I just don't see a lot of them happening, just based on the fact that I don't think young Griff will be alive by the end of the story. I I think the Jon one could make a lot of sense. Personally, I don't see Rickon ruling the North just because of who he is as a person. And I also don't believe that Robb has a son, so I will probably disagree on that as well. I also think Arya's journey is not returning to being an assassin, continuing her arc and revenge and things like that. I don't think that that's where her journey is going. Good thoughts. Again, I could be completely wrong, but that's just kind of my thoughts on it. Better? Okay, cool. I love that Bridget comes in. He's a Targaryen. Don't worry about it, Dakota. That is the correct answer, Bridget. That is the correct answer. What if the burning is a misdirect and hold on, sorry, I scrolled down as soon as I was reading your chat. I think we're also having packet loss now. So that's not great. We're also lagging now. So boy, that's all I gotta say. I don't know how good we are. Guys, let me know if it's lagging too bad or whatnot. I've just got a warning message on like my YouTube center or whatever that I'm reading chat on. So just let me know how that's going. Remember, it'd take Stannis bare minimum a month to get back to the wall. The ice cells can't preserve Jon's body that long. Why would they even keep it that long? Agreed. That's my thought process as well, George. Like, Stannis is going to have to travel all the way back up to the wall. That's going to take a lot of time. Like, what is the rationale that Jon's body is kept that long? Audio's good. Thank you, George. Good. Thought it was my Wi-Fi. Well, I don't know. I'm also having issues on my end. I don't know if it's or not. I don't think it is, just because I can still see me losing packets. But I don't know. We just gotta roll with the punches, I guess. I do want to check before I go on with the stream. I want to check on my phone just to see how the stream's doing. Myself. But also, yeah, crab. The crab feeder video will be, or not crab feeder, but the Craster video with him is going to be up tonight. And you might not like some of the things I say about him. Okay, I think stream's good. I think YouTube's lying to me. I think YouTube's lying to me. I looked on my phone; it was fine. All right, so let's move on. So let's say one way or another, Jon is brought back to life. Whether that's Shireen's burning, which I think will cause possibly a grayscale plague with the idea of Hatchface. One thing again I struggle with this is same thing with John Connington. Do we have time for a grayscale plague? Like I just think about everything that's going on in the North right now. I just feel like we're overcrowded. And so I almost think this is another idea where I think George, great idea, but it's almost something that I might cut just because I don't know if we have time for it. To have this whole plague that goes through the North while we also have the battle um, for the North going on and all this. Like, it just seems like a little too much to me. It's a little overcrowded, in my opinion. But we'll see. I don't know. That's to me again. I could see it definitely happening with Patchface, and specifically because it does seem to have some prophetic powers or something along those lines. But yeah, that's gonna be an interesting part of it. So then Jon comes back. You know, he has the knowledge of the pink letter. He was already planning to go south. Now the Night's Watch have betrayed him. Obviously, Jon's not staying at the wall anymore. Jon will be going south, more than likely to Winterfell, and I think that he will find out what has occurred there. I think that likely Melisandre is going to go with Jon, especially if Melisandre is able to bring Jon back. Melisandre will look at Jon as kind of like a figure, right? He's come back from the dead. There's something that's powerful. There's a reason that she's always seeing him. I think that Melisandre will very much go with Jon. And so I think Mel could easily look into Jon as a character for the most part. And I think that that's going to lead Jon south. That likely will lead to where we finally get to see how Stannis maybe either takes Winterfell or if he succeeds or not. We'll see probably mixed in there with Theon and Asha. Well, the real question is going to be the wall, right? Because at this point, we wouldn't have a wall POV. And so, what I think would make a lot of sense is if Bran is still a POV at this point of the story, as Melisandre and Jon leave the wall, you could see that Bran arrives at the wall. Because all of this is going to be hard to calculate. Jon and Melisandre likely leaving the wall in the middle part of Winds of Winter, right? I don't expect Jon to be dead for 3/4 of this book. I think that at least by the halfway point, Jon should be resurrected. Them, they'll be doing some sort of action, right? And so Bran, at the same time, okay, we still have to wrap up his plot with Bloodraven. How is that all going to go down? That's probably going to take a couple chapters to pick up that plot line, whether he's attacked by the others, the hold the door stuff that was in the show that likely will also be in the book, maybe done a little differently. And we have to see them traveling to the wall and eventually getting to the wall. There's a lot here with Bran. Now, could you just as easily something where, okay, the hold the door chapter is the last real chapter that Bran has north of the wall, and that we recount that journey later on with maybe one Bran chapter as he's at the wall or he's getting to the wall, or maybe we none of that at all. Maybe we don't even see a Bran chapter of him getting to the wall. We hear about it through Andra, a POV, and that's John's interest, and then maybe on we hear what actually happened later on. I don't know. There's a lot of it to it that we'll have to kind of understand, but I think the wall probably fade as a POV, as is us knowing what's exactly happening at the wall as the story goes on. There really is no room for a pandemic. I agree, Gerg. I've said it before. I truly believe that if George made it 3 more books and not that it would fix a lot of problems he's having. I agree, Violet. Me and JC talked about this, I believe, on his channel. But I think having 3 books would just alleviate some of the issues, the pacing issues that the next book's gonna probably face, because I feel like we just have no time to slow down. Whereas like the last 2 books, right, it felt like a lot of slow down. Winds of Winter is just we've gotta go, go, go. There's no time to waste. There's gonna be no like levity. That's something I worry about with Winds of Winter is it's just big action, big action, big action, big action. It feels like a Storm of Swords, but on crack. From the way I think we're viewing that book right now. If Jon comes back, not only will Mel switch to his side, but so will Stannis' men and the Queen's men at the wall, as they are all R'hllor worshippers. Agreed. That's another part I didn't even consider. Right? How do the people of the Queen's men react to this situation? Their god has brought Jon back from death. This is a feat that's never really been seen before by a lot of the Queen's men, right? Or not at all. So, yeah, I agree with you, George. Do you think Jon will have any communication with Bloodraven? This is a fantastic question. If we do get a ghost POV, I very much expect that there will be some sort of Bloodraven involvement. Very similar to Bran 3 in a Game of Thrones, where his third eye is being awakened. I expect something of that nature. Maybe not like his third eye and all that stuff, but some communication by Bloodraven. Jon. I can even see Bloodraven having some manipulation, showing how they need to bring Jon back into his own body at the wall, manipulating events, whether that be with Jorah Mormont's old bird or whether that's through other means. Uh, Thank you, Dakota, for gifting a membership to the Crab Feeder. Welcome to the member club. Appreciate you, Dakota, as always. 3 more books would take until 2075. Not necessarily, Gerg. It depends where George is at with Winds of Winter, but he could possibly, like, if he did this right now, yeah, he'd probably have to edit it up a little bit, but you could then have a release of Winds of Winter and then have the next book and then Dream of Spring. So Dakota, I don't think I have monetization on right now. Like, I know I don't have ads on. I don't know how that affects super chats, but that might be what. I don't like having ads on for live streams anymore because I feel like it Just doesn't make any sense to do so, in my opinion. It just takes you guys out of the conversation and things like that. And also, hi Ashley, how are you? Sorry for the slander that happened yesterday. It wasn't my fault. It was all Ricky. Don't blame me. I did nothing wrong. Um, Toothless Paste, that's kind of where I'm at right now. House of the Dragon, to me, they have to prove to me that it's not a train wreck. So, yeah. Um, I find it interesting that Jon is stuck between Mel and Bloodraven, both championing him but viewing each other as enemies. Yeah, coming from two very different magics and cultures and things like that. It's something very interesting. We talk about Daenerys being pulled by other people like Barristan and by Tyrion and Tyrion and Dario, all these different people trying to gain influence on her. Jon will be the same way. Crab, you don't get to change the banner. It stays until you're a member for a month. So after your membership runs out, I think it goes to a Martell banner. What did I do wrong, Ashley? I didn't slander Darkstar. I didn't slander who else? Victarion. I said Victarion was a fun POV. I like him, but he's not my favorite. Darkstar, I said nothing. I stayed silent on the issue. I let Ricky do all the damage. Also, Ashley, I hope you feel better. Okay, but Ashley, I was letting the truth flow. Okay, I was letting the truth flow. You were getting back in good graces with Ricky, so I had to ask Ricky what his thoughts on our Darkstar, because if he's not a Darkstar supporter, then you're not gonna be vibing, okay? And so I just brought it up. Did Grease just rage quit? No, no. I don't rage quit. I never rage quit. Rage quit. Professor Grease with his new setup. Yes. This is the new setup. I've edited 2 of the videos coming out this week, or I guess I should say 3, but for this channel 2. I'm very happy with how it looks. I can just tell it looks a lot better, and it makes me happy. Yeah, I'm very excited for tomorrow's video, which is gonna be on Renly and Stannis. I think it's a good one. Hey, okay. Lady Barbary is a fantastic character. We love Barbary Dustin, but like, you can't take everything she says as gospel. Okay, I'm just saying. Sometimes you gotta question things. Be more of a reliable source than say the Maesters. Well, of course. That doesn't mean that she always is right. That's all I'm saying. Rich season 2 for a document House of the Dragon, but yeah, we're still. I'll see if the treasury can bear such an expense.